from a very young age, I always felt like there was this reason why people had certain personality traits and why they did certain things, and it being linked to their brain, because my mom had very interesting traits.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Today in the house, we have Fallon Jordan. She is a community and curriculum director at Ames University. She is a brain health licensed trainer. She has her own consultant business, and she's also a podcaster. So we'll learn more about her. Thank you for being here, Jordan. I welcome you.
Thank you so much, Paolo.
So please share with us, like a little bit about your background, your story, and how are you bettering the world with brain health education?
Absolutely. So from a very young age, I always felt like there was this reason why people had certain personality traits and why they did certain things, and it being linked to their brain, because my mom had very interesting traits, unlike most of my friends' moms. And I knew that she had epilepsy, which even as a young child, like I understood that it was like a brain problem, right? So I just kind of had that floating in the background. And then when it came to me going to college, which I have a September birthday, so I was 17, which, as you and I know, your brain's not even close to being fully developed by then. And I changed my major like multiple times, settled in psychology because the only thing that really interested me, but there was still just that huge missing piece that I didn't know about until many years later, when I just woke up one morning and God was like, "You're going to get a job in your field today." And I'm like, I don't have a field. Like, I'm like all over the place, like floundering through life and trying to figure things out. And I found the front desk job at Amen Clinics about 9.5 years ago. Fell in love with what we do. It was like all of the missing pieces to everything that I've kind of been curious about. I've always been a very, very curious person. And now I get to have all this amazing information just from working with patients and working with the best neuropsychiatrists on the planet, and then just kind of incorporating that into my passions and natural gifts, which is like organization, and taking everything that I've learned from Dr. Amen and Amen Clinics doctors about the subconscious mind and then the visual cortex, and how my cat says hi. His name is Archer. He's kind of and just putting all that together into these offerings that I have. So like I do podcasts with brain health coaches like you, pretty much anyone that's just kind of like in the realm of the things that I love to talk about, which is just anything related to personal development and self-love and then growth. And I'm only 36 and a half, but I feel like I've been in love multiple times and moved multiple times and just had a lot of things happen in my life where it was hard and painful, but then I'm like, I need to just start learning what the lesson is here and then turning that pain into purpose, like Tana Amen talks about all the time. And so now, just the way that I see the world and people, it's just all about every biomedical, psychological, social, and spiritual risk factor that they could be having that behavior. I have this guy that just completely like bitched this guy out at the deli for not cutting his meat thin enough. And I'm just standing there. And this was years ago, before I was a lot more assertive than I am now, because I would have definitely said something. But it was just so sad. And I'm like, I'm looking at the guy and I see that he's, like 60-year-old man that looks like he's pregnant with twins. And I'm like, he's got a lot of stuff going on in his brain and body. And like, I hope that he figures out what that is and wants to be better, because I love Wayne Dyer and I love all these people that talk about just universal love and all of that. But the brain as an organ, being what makes you think, feel, and behave the way that you do, is just so important to the spiritual path, in my opinion.
Yes, yes, I'm learning. Like each day I'm learning something new, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so important to be aware of our brain health. Because since,
Yeah.
like Dr. Amen says, since we don't see that organ, like we don't really uh focus so much, or we don't give it, the attention that it truly needs. So yes, I agree with
I'm
you.
lucky to look at my brain a lot.
Oh
I have it
yes,
on
you.
my screensaver. So, and when I'm talking to people like this, I kind of like, oh yeah, like I've had multiple SPECT scans that look at my blood flow and brain activity. And every time I've got a scan, it looked better, except the one after I had, it was so weird. It was a concussion induced by a seizure, induced by a basal vagal response, which like at the time I didn't realize was an emotional trauma that I've thankfully figured out and addressed. But it's just like all these things kind of come together. And for me, I mean, everything about my life is like improving what's in your visual space. And if your visual space includes your life goals on one piece of paper, which Dr. Amen calls the one page miracle, and your brain at the healthiest it recently has been, I think that's like the coolest thing that we can do to just stay on top and realize like there's some days that are really hard, there are some days that are really easy and things flow, but ultimately like we're here to learn as much as we can and like enjoy the human experience. And the best way to start is, like I say, from the top down. Like you got to start with the brain stuff and then, you know, go through the rest of the body, and including like, you know, like heart work and like chakra work and like everything about the mind body connection.
What I enjoy, like one of my favorite things is like to share is how Dr. Amen structure the brain health. It's not just our biology. You
Yeah.
know, he's like your psychology,
Yeah.
your social life, and your spiritual, like all those four components, uh, like creates our brain health. Like if we focus on
Totally.
those four. Yes.
Yeah.
So
And for 8 years when I was in the clinics, I was doing intakes. So I was hearing people's entire life story. Most of the time, I'm seeing them in one of the biggest moments of pain in their life. And I listen to this story and then have their family members give me their insight about their story. And I put it in a report for the doctor. So I just like soaked up like all of the wisdom I possibly could. And it's just funny to see how so many people were doing a lot of the biological things, right? Like they were sleeping, they were eating well. Some people were doing really well in the social aspects, like they were married to their best friend, like they had a beautiful, supportive family. They didn't understand why they were depressed or anxious, which is why they were here. And then there's people who, you know, just their spiritual life is just like so on point. They're like, God led me here for a reason. Like I literally have slept through the night my whole life. And then last month at 2 a.m., I wake up wide awake and God tells me to turn on the TV and there's Dr. Amen. And like, here I am. For me, my biopsychosocial spiritual life was all like in the gutter. Like I had to like really start from nothing and like build my health. And for me, it was yes, focusing on my brain, but then the next big thing was the social, like the people that were surrounded by me, the four closest people, like they weren't the type of people that I wanted for my soul. Like they weren't the kind of people I wanted to go on this journey of life and love with. Then that's like, you know, brings up like, why are you making these choices, right? And so then that's when I started the psychological therapy journey and doing trauma work. And now I'm just like at such a better place because I understand like the four circles are equally as important. And with the bio piece, a lot of people miss the brain thing because there are a lot of great therapists and doctors that are like, oh yeah, like we're holistic, which means we look at everything about a person and we ask the right questions. We don't just say you're stressed and prescribe a cholesterol medication. Like we ask why you're stressed. Like how is your marriage? Like do you need a referral for a marriage counselor? Like your kid has autism. Like that must be really hard. Like have you processed that? Like all of those things. But so many people miss the brain piece, and it's just like the most important.
yes. And you mentioned trauma, like it doesn't have to be like a car accident sometimes. It doesn't have to be like violence involved. Sometimes we develop trauma just by a simple experience or not feeling good enough
Yeah.
or not, or feeling that rejection. And our subconscious mind just register that and begins to build walls, next time that person is or you are in that environment.
Yeah. I
And
mean, my opinion is everyone has immense amounts of trauma because you were born a human on planet Earth, which is like one of the hardest places to be. But that's why I always say, like, let's just try and make the most of it. Like, what can I possibly learn? Like, my therapist laughs. He's like, you always want to go to the hard stuff first. I'm like, yeah, I've been like that my whole life. Like, I eat the vegetables first so that I can have the yummy stuff later. Like, that's just the way that my brain works. But at the same time, 99% of the trauma that's in our body isn't ours. It's passed on. Your biological parents brought their crap into a baby, their crap was into them. And it's like, this is their generation. And this is why I love that I get to do this work relatively young. And like, I love working with families and teens and helping them. It's like, we can change generations. Like, we can do things that are hard, but in essence, don't only make your life better, but they're going to make your biological children's life better, and even non-biological children. But like we have to change the paradigm. Like insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. No one in my family has ever wanted to go to therapy or deal with trauma or even say that they have trauma when their stories are very horrific when in basically compared to mine. But it's just part of what we're meant to do here. Like we're just meant to improve, and it doesn't have, like you said, it doesn't have to be a car accident. It doesn't have to be a violent situation. Like that is for sure trauma, but anything that puts you into fight, flight, or freeze is trauma at a biological level. 95 to 90% of how we operate on a daily basis is subconscious, which is based on previous experiences, most of them before age 7. What word did you hear the most before age 7? No. No, you can't do that. No, you can't touch that. No, you can't have that. Why? Because I said so. And so we have to kind of rewire like the parenting and the teaching structure as well, which is why I'm like so obsessed with love and logic and mixing that with the brain health. Dr. Aben and Dr. Charles Fay of Love and Logic are going to come out with a book together. And I feel like it's going to literally be what
Good.
changes the way that we view family and the way that we view raising children. Because, you know, there's a saying like, raise your kids or raise your grandkids. Like if you don't raise your children properly, which is discipline, love, logic, everything that Love and Logic talks about, but making sure they're taking care of their brain. I mean, it's going to be hard to take good care of them if they, like me, like I ran straight into a fireplace and like gushed my head open when I was 2. Probably had a lot to do with me being pretty impulsive, right? Because part of my prefrontal cortex was damaged. So it's like all of those things put together. It's like we're really just going to give kids the best opportunity that I know of since we've been on this planet to like really have the life of their dreams and make the world a better place.
That is awesome. I can't wait to read that book
I
because
know I can't, like
those
they're literally
together.
just talking about writing it this week. So it's going to be a while, but like I'm just so excited.
Yes, because one other thing that brain health teaches us, that I've learned, is like we turn our pain, like you were saying, into purpose. You know, so we let go of the resentment, or we work, you know, on letting go of resentments from our traumas from our past, and we just, you know, turn it into purpose where we can better our family, and our family will better other people, and slowly we're bettering the world. And
Yeah.
it's just a beautiful mission that you and Dr. Amen and his team bring to us, you know, to learn, and so we can teach others. So
I love that you
that's
brought up
pretty
the word resentment. It's one of my faves. Because you
really.
can't have, yeah, you can't have resentment if you're setting boundaries. That is the result of not setting boundaries of what and who is acceptable in your life and knowing that it can change, which I'm single, but you know, if I have a partner one day, like once a week, like we go through our goals, like these are my wants and needs. Like I'm so appreciative for you doing XYZ. This is shifting for me. Like, how do you feel about that? Like we change minute to minute, especially once we do have a healthy brain and we are understanding that the present is a present and like you are a gift and you have gifts and like all we have right now is this moment together. Things change so quickly. And especially now, I don't know if you feel it, but you know, it doesn't have to take 3 years to have like your dream life. Like you can have it very quickly. Like you just have to have the mindset and the discipline to do the things that you need to do to get there. That's why like manifestation is like such a cool hot topic now, which I'm grateful people are talking about it. But there's just so many opportunities for us to set boundaries. Nancy Levin is my favorite person. It's about that. You can follow her everywhere. She's a world-renowned coach, and
I
she
have to
wrote this
learn more.
amazing book. Where is it?
Yeah, I
It's
haven't
right
heard
there.
about her.
Yeah, it's right there. The New Relationship Blueprint.
Okay.
It's amazing. I read it when I was going through a breakup. Just happened, like God just basically like planted it in my lap. I swear to God. And it was just so validating that like this is what a real relationship is. Like again, like these missing pieces, these things floating around of what I think is like normal, but like what's normal for me and like my expectations. And
Mhm.
it was just like the most beautiful read of how we really need to shift. Like if we truly don't take care of ourselves, if we don't fill our cup with the things that we need to be successful, we're not going to be good for a partner. We're not going to be good for our kids. We're not going to be good for our colleagues or our employees. Like the morning routine is such a big thing that I talk about now that I've been sticking to it for about 4 or 5 months. I've been like very rigid. Like I do these 5 things in the morning, every single morning, no matter if I'm on a bachelorette trip, no matter if I'm on vacation, like I do these things every day. They take 20 minutes and it completely shifts my day.
You
And it's
begin
a
winning
boundary.
the day.
Yeah, and it's a boundary. So If
Okay.
for some reason, like I didn't do those things and then something not so pleasant happened later, my mind's immediately going to be like, oh, I didn't set a boundary. Like I didn't do this thing that I know makes me feel better in handling difficult situations like this. And then I'm just going to get resentful with myself, which like clearly is not something that I want.
That makes sense. Now I understand. Okay, I see. Then your resentment you have to deal with yourself.
Yeah, and if you
I
have like a lot of like Nancy Levin talks about, like she's, you know, people pay a butt ton of money just to work with her. Like she doesn't answer her phone on Fridays. Period. Her phone is off all day Friday. She sets that boundary during her consult with clients before she even says that they might consider working together. Hey, just so you know, like I literally never open. So if she answered her phone on a Friday when a client called her, like she's not honoring the boundary.
okay.
So, and I know, like I said, like it shifts and changes throughout different points in your life, but it's really important to kind of know like what your non-negotiables are. And for me, like my morning routine is a non-negotiable.
It sets you for the day, like to
Yeah,
win the day. So
yeah,
yeah. I'm not I used to be strict about my morning routine, and now I've been like the last couple of months I haven't been as strict I should have. But yeah, I think it's better whenever we have the morning routine and you have way more energy to accomplish your
yeah. And I
goals for
understand
the
it's
day.
different for everybody because some people have kids and like that's when they're helping them get ready for the day and stuff like that. I get it. It's just I know my brain works the best between like 10 and 5. So like even doing the 9 to 5 and like being at the office at 9 to 5, like that extra 2 hours because of traffic just was not good for my brain. And so now I have that boundary, but like I know like I can't be traveling and like sitting in traffic and doing all these things in the morning because you're not going to get my best self. You're not going to get my best brain and you're not going to get me in the best mindset. So,
Yeah, that's good to
yeah.
know.
I know because a
You
lot of
know,
people in our community get confused because they think I'm in California, even
I
though
would
I'm,
think
yeah,
so. You're
yeah,
not?
even though I'm in Atlanta. But I work
Oh,
mostly Pacific hours because my whole team is in Cali. And like my
okay.
brain just like operates better on those hours. So it works out.
Okay, I would have guessed that you were in California as well,
Yeah.
but you're not. Oh, good to know. So could you please explain? Well, we talk about the main components of the brain already, right? Like, do you agree with the spiritual, social, physical, and biology?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How can we influence our own self whenever we're dealing with fear?
So I like to think of fear and love as like a spectrum. And like in any mental health place, they say like on a scale of 1 to 10, like what are you feeling with this? Or like even in the ER, like on a scale of 1 to 10, what is pain? So I think of it as like a 1 to 10, like completely in love, completely in fear, and like where you are and like what you know brings you closer to that. So like again just being present and understanding, hey, like I'm scared because I feel like I might be abandoned, for example. I'm scared I'm going to feel abandoned because every time I feel abandoned before I didn't handle it well. Maybe I don't need to be scared of being abandoned because I know that I'll be able to handle it. I'm going to send myself and this other anyone else that's involved, I'm just going to send them love and light and say I no longer let this fear affect me. And I'm really into like divine connection and prayer. So sometimes like if I'm feeling fear, which yesterday I was just like a total freaking wreck, and I just kept saying like, God, angel guides, like please let me know what I need to do to be my highest and best self in this moment. Please let me know if there's anything I'm not doing that's going to make me feel better. And I kind of joked about it on Instagram, but I was like, yeah, like I used to have a coping skill of like eating pizza and watching romantic comedy when I would be upset about something like love interest related. And
Mhm.
I was like so proud of myself that I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do another morning routine of all of the things that I know make me feel better and sticking to my goals and boundaries, which one of the biggest things, and I know this sounds silly, but it's like a game changer for me, just the way that I'm built through human design and Enneagram. I always have fresh flowers in my house. And that's like a non-negotiable. And that was something that I started in January and I have stuck to it. And I'm like so proud of myself because it makes me feel so much better. And I mean, they're nothing special. They're like $5 bouquet, but like it just makes my whole home feel good. And it makes me
Yeah.
feel good. And when I see them, I'm like, that flower was, it came from dirt, it came from mud, which in the subconscious is like trauma and junk that you need to work through. It did what it needed to grow and become this beautiful thing. So it's kind of like my own little like therapist sitting on my bar.
I love fresh flowers too. It just brings a
Yes.
different atmosphere where you're like,
Yes.
feel
And when you
happier.
are one of those people that realizes how important it is to you, like I was house sitting, and when I went house sitting, I bought myself flowers to stay at the house there. And it was even like
Good.
something I got to celebrate because my cat, for some reason, like eats my roses. So I never can have
Yeah,
roses in the house. And so whenever I go house sitting, I buy this like big, ridiculous, beautiful bouquet of roses. And I'm just like, I love my cat, but like I want my fresh flowers and like I get to enjoy these and I normally don't. So
that's neat. You also journal, right? Journaling is a big, you teach us
yeah.
about journaling is a big component on our
Yeah.
brain health.
So I write 10 to 20 things that I'm happy and grateful for. And some of those are things that technically haven't happened in this reality, but are things that I'm wanting for my life. And
Okay.
then the same thing for I am awesome because things that I am awesome because of present, and then things that I want to continue or morph into my life. Like I want to say like I am awesome because I take my friends on vacation. Like that's like my biggest life goal. And so I put that
Oh,
in my journal almost every day.
that's yeah, it's neat. It's like I mean, there's a lot of research that teaches us that
Mhm.
journaling is should be like a daily habit.
Yeah. I mean, the only way to change your thoughts is by getting them out. That's why like I love apps, like I love affirmations, trust me, but like it's nothing like you sitting down and actually writing them, and like writing them in a journal that you love, not a journal that someone bought you, and writing them with something you love. Like Crayola came out with these new super tip markers and they're like my favorite.
I
And
need
so
to.
I have like a few different colors, and like because of my knowledge of like chakras and like colors and like feng shui and stuff, like I can tell how I'm doing when I'll look back on my journal. I can tell what I was feeling that day based on the color I picked. So it's kind of cool. Like the days that I'm having a really hard time, like I go to the pink, which is my favorite marker. Days that I feel really good, I go for the orange marker because that's when I'm in flow state and I'm like creative and I feel like anything is possible. Blue is what I use when I'm just kind of like sad and like processing something. Like it's just so cool how things can kind of like be connected. Like you said, based on science, these little things that can make a difference. People think it's silly, that's fine, but every silly thing that I've tried has worked. So I think there's that
Yes.
saying like it's woo woo until it happens to you. And it's 20 minutes. And sometimes it's even faster than that. Like I had a weird situation where my friend's mom just showed up at my door and was like freaking out about something. And I had 30 minutes to get ready from like the moment that she knocked on my door, which I just rolled out of bed, and then us getting to the hospital. So I walked on my treadmill, which is like the most important thing. And I did my journaling on the treadmill and I did a meditation while I was doing all that. And I just said, yo, like I need 20 minutes and I will be like all yours for the rest of the day. But again,
Yeah.
like I set that boundary and knew like if I don't do this, I'm going to be resentful. And like, obviously, I don't want to be resentful toward someone that's already like having a painful day. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yes.
So
Yes.
it doesn't
Discipline.
have to be perfect every day.
Okay. Good. Yeah. 'Cause sometimes we're like, oh, I should have done 30, but I mean, you did your best with 20
Yeah.
minutes. So
Yeah.
good. Uh, what has been your biggest challenge as a leader?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. At this point in time, it's really just being like 100% vulnerable. Um, I found out some really traumatic things about my family in November, and since I've embraced that and been working very closely with multiple therapists and coaches, every day I feel more like my true self, but I'm still not like out, if that makes sense. Like I haven't like shared what happened with my family. My family has no idea that I know about this trauma. So that's kind of like this hanging thing. And I actually just did exercise before we got on so that I could be more centered around it. But I mean, that's been hard. And at some point, like I am going to have to like come out about it. And it's like going to be extremely difficult for people to hear, like
Okay.
people not just in my community but like distant family members, because I'm like I'm not going to block everybody. I already made it clear that I'm not on Facebook anymore, which by the way, good for you and anyone in our community to know this is why I'm not on Facebook. It's too triggering with my family stuff. I don't want to feel like I have to block everybody. Like
Mhm.
everything I'm doing, my therapist said is totally okay. I'm just doing what I need to take care of myself. Instagram is where I feel free and like I can control a little bit better who's seeing it because like obviously my grandmother's not on Instagram. So that's been a really challenging thing the last few months. Before that, it was more just like living my truth and like really knowing who I am and what I want. Which when I found out about this family trauma, like it was like this light came on. I was like, this is what I've been like stuck on for years. And so I was just, grateful that I learned this information. But even yesterday, my therapist is like, yeah, like you're going to have to deal with this like the rest of your life. Like we could do therapy every day, but like your family is going to be your Achilles heel. Like your brand is helping families be better connected and happy. Like you're never going to have that. Like you need to always know that that's going to be a thing. And I'm like, okay, whatever you say, Bill. He's the best. I've been working with him for 8 years.
Yeah,
So, but that's really sweet for you to ask. I appreciate that. It feels good
yeah.
to just get that out.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing and feeling safe. Because the like I am learning that I have to be true to myself and
Mm-hmm.
feel that self-love and that self-authenticity in order for me to step out and lead others, even with my children. uh
Yeah, yeah,
but
that's something I haven't dodged yet, but that would be very challenging. So,
but yeah, it's good. I mean, thanks for sharing, because we do have to work on ourselves in order for us to continue and show up for other people. So,
yeah,
and I appreciate you showing up for our community because
absolutely.
we get to
Yeah.
learn. So, where can we find you? If there is anybody in our audience today that is watching this interview that want to learn more about you, about your counseling business, your services, how can we find you?
So I'm on Instagram. I'm always posting stuff. So you can look for me just Fallon Jordan. I should pop up, but my handle is at the period home period alchemist, which means that I do everything that I can through home design and the life coaching tools that have been monumental for me to help families build self understanding and self awareness, but then that turning into compassion and communication. Some of the tools that I use are human design, Enneagram, DISC assessments, and then, of course, everything you could imagine related to brain health. And then the most important things about your health, like your vitamins and your hormones. So I work really close with doctors when I'm working with these families. But ideally, like I do go into the family's home and like we restructure the home in a way that promotes everyone feeling loved and cared for. A lot of times, one or two people in the family kind of take the lead. And because I tend to attract younger parents of teenage boys, the teenage boys don't really care as long as they have a TV and a video game. But then when I get in there, I'm like, yo, like you're not having a TV and a video game anymore. Like this is not making your brain healthy. So I post everything there. And then if you do start following me there on Instagram, and I'm obviously on LinkedIn too, but Instagram's like my baby. Once my website is done, I will be letting everybody know, and that'll be like the most exciting thing ever because
Yeah.
I'm working on it every day. So,
And she shares great information on her videos. Like I watched one yesterday, I think, where it's like put your
my
feet in the
bad day
ground.
one.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's good. It's like sometimes.
I didn't think I was going to do it yesterday. And then one of my coworkers actually, she's so sweet. She's like, hey, I just want to let you know I love your videos so much. And I was like, oh, thanks. I was like, I guess I'm
Yes,
going to post something today. Cause again, like I'm trying to be more vulnerable. Right. And I'm like, I can't let
yes,
everybody just see the good stuff. That's not fair. Cause that's not the way
yes.
life
Because
is.
we're humans, and
Yeah.
life is like I love what Dr. Amen says. Like normal is a myth.
Right.
We're all handling a situation right now. It could be our, sadness, anxiety. I eat my emotions sometimes.
I
So
hear
I'm
you.
working on that. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story, sharing your knowledge. Could you please, in a phrase of two, share your legacy for us to learn and implement into our lives to create a brighter future, find our purpose?
So it can come off like a little dark, but every coach I've seen, every soul journey I've gone on, everything says that my purpose is for people to find more harmony through oppression. So understanding that again, like the human condition is difficult. being a human on earth is very difficult, but now more than ever, we have every opportunity to really have the most like happy, peaceful, intimate relationships in our life with ourselves and other people. And so everything that I do is basically around getting like understanding that like through oppression you can thrive. And ultimately my goal for everybody is yes, like harmony, peace and stuff, but also like creativity and playfulness. Cause that's what being a fun kid, that's what being a kid is all about. It's like you're just like creating and like using your imagination and playing. And that's why kids laugh, 300 times a day and adults laugh 4 times a day. And look how much healthier kids are. Like they're very resilient. They fall and skim their knee and they laugh it off. I know some adults that they'll bitch and complain for a week after falling down. Like it's just everything comes back to the good stuff, which to me is like that creative, playful part of our lives.
Beautiful. Yes, we all have to create time for us to play and just come
Yes.
up with something fun to do. Open up our
Yes.
creativity. I hope you all are found a word, a phrase, a sentence, an aha moment today that you can implement into your life to create a brighter future. Because normal is a myth. We're all dealing with
It's a
something
town
right
in
now.
Illinois also.
Yes,
And
it
the
is a
fact that
time.
people live there is very strange to me.
Yes. So blessings to you all. Thank you for being here. High five, Jordan. Yay.
So cute. I love doing high fives.